Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. And what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but they will apply a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you do have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring live chat. If you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's diagnostic technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru, so I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bed. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. All right, our topic today is continuing on with our OEM specific training series, and this week it is Mercedes-Benz. So we're going to talk about what makes Mercedes unique in the market. And first off, we'll start off with some history. So Carl Friedrich Benz is the Benz part of the Mercedes name. He founded Benz and Company. CIE would be how they abbreviate it over in Germany. It was founded in 1883. Now, he's credited for coming up with, say, the first motorized car-like vehicle, I guess you could say, because it's a little three-wheeler cart down here, and they called that the Benz Patent Motor Wagon, MOTORWAGN, because once again, German, right? So that was in 1885 he came up with this. And then Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft, I'm not really good with pronouncing German, but that was the other half of the company, founded in 1890. Both companies merged in 1926 and became Daimler-Benz AG, manufacturing under the name Mercedes-Benz. Now, they picked the Mercedes name because that was the name of Daimler's most important vehicle that they had. So they combined kind of both and gave them the name there. So they went through, the 1900s and all that. And, through World War II, and then partnered with Studebaker in 1958 to start selling vehicles in the US. So they were selling right along through that. And then they ended up, as you may know, they merged with Chrysler in 1998 to form Daimler Chrysler. Due to that merger, the Sprinter van was born. So, the Dodge Sprinter, Mercedes Sprinter, Freightliner Sprinter, all of that came as the same basic vehicle, just with different badges on it, really. And that was born out of that, as well as the Chrysler Crossfire, which was born out of that, was based on a Mercedes platform. Really didn't have a lot of crossover, as much as they thought they would have, I guess, when they first merged. So they ended up selling a majority share of their Chrysler shares in 2007, and then that kind of brings us to today, where they are Mercedes-Benz takes care of the automotive side and Daimler takes care of the trucking side. So let's look at sales. Let's look at their top models. These are the reason I do this is because, well, what kind of cars are we going to see out in the shops, right? So if that's the reason, if they sold more, then there's going to be more to work on in the shop. So I always want to see what kind of the top ones are. So the top one on this, once again, 2013 to 2023, so about a 10-year span. C-Class, 622,000. E-Class, 440,000, and you can see how it goes down from there. All told, all of these top 10 models combined to sell a little over 2 million units over that 10-year span. And you also notice we're kind of getting down. Not one of these even hit 750,000 sales in the US. Now, of course, over in Europe, sell a lot more, and worldwide, globally, they sell a lot more vehicles. But I just found it an interesting trend, and this is the first time I put this graph in one of these. And we can see definitely what that graph is doing, right? So this is overall sales for Mercedes over those 10 years. So the peak was about 2014 overall. Now, to be fair, a couple of these models have just dropped off altogether starting in 2016. Like these, a few of these ones up here on the top there, it looks like the M class, the GLK, and let's see, what's this pinky one, GL class, right? So a lot of those kind of dropped off, but the sales were not made up by the other models. Is kind of what I'm trying to get at. You see, all the models are relatively shrinking as it goes down. In 2023, that was their worst U.S. Model year for at least those top 10 models. So just an interesting trend that I noticed. Don't know, I'm sure they still sell quite a few worldwide. It's just not nearly as many of those models in the US. 2013 C-Class is one good representation out of that. The C-Class was the top selling model over those 10 years, and 2013 was the high water mark for them. So it was the third generation of the C-Class. It was offered with a 1.6, 1.8, and 3.5 liter naturally aspirated engines. 6.3 liter AMG, that's their performance engine, was also available. And then a 7-speed automatic transmission. Same model year. I guess 2013 was a high water mark for a lot of them. 2013 E-Class as well. So it was their fourth generation of the E-Class, 3.5 liter, 4.6 liter engines, gas engines, and a 3-liter diesel was available. Also a 5.5 liter AMG, 7-speed automatic transmission. And interesting note on this model year, 2013 was the first year after doing a $1 billion facelift for a model. So it wasn't even a new generation. It was just a mid generation facelift, but it was said they spent over $1 billion just on the facelift with it and whatever tweaks they made. So that was kind of interesting tidbit there. And then I decided to pick an SUV. This is their closest thing to an SUV that made it on the list at the top 10 anyways. 2018 GLA class. So this is the first generation of the GLA. In North America, it was available only with a 2-liter engine. And it comes equipped with a 7-speed DCT transmission. And the Infiniti Q30 and the QX30 were also based on this platform as well. So they just really changed the outside sheet metal. Everything else was shared. Some common issues that we found throughout research here. So misfire issues, much like many vehicles. Interestingly enough, PCV issues. So you will see when we get to the common codes that there are a lot of PCV codes on there. Timing chain wear, much like many vehicles with timing chains and no maintenance, but they can be, due to the design of the engine, can be a little difficult to diagnose and then repair. So there's actually a tip that we're going to give in a little bit too. And signal acquisition module issues. So according to techs I've talked to, very common. Front signal acquisition module, rear signal acquisition module. They're like body control modules on the vehicle. They only go for like a couple $100. They're so common, but they do have a large number of failures. Common codes. So as I said, top 10 codes, and the majority of them, as we see, are between the PCV valve malfunction and engine oil pump actuation valve malfunction. So between those two, that is 9 out of the top 10 codes. And you see it's all pretty much on the same engine. So that would lead me to believe that maybe it's just 2-liter engine that's causing a lot more of the issues. And notice how it's also the C-Class, which was our top selling model. So see how this all kind of blends together. It's the most common vehicle, and this engine is the most common engine in this. And then the most common failures are these. So you see it's pretty much the same 2 types of codes, oil pump actuation and the PCV. So I just thought that was kind of interesting there. And this is right out of the scan tool, right? Top 3,600 codes, and these are the top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 codes actually I've received. OEM specific features. So a few things that are unique to them. Now, doing my research, I've kind of looked through, and they don't really have any, how do I want to say it? Not really anything that they really harp on for marketing purposes, like a lot of other manufacturers do. So, we have this, we have that, or like BMW has like 5 different ways to change the timing in their valve intake runners and stuff like that. They're fairly complex creatures, but there's nothing that's like earth shattering about them. They just use tried and true methodology. But one thing that is very unique about them is their chassis codes and their engine codes, because if you're going to try and get parts for them or look some of them up, especially if you're looking it up year, make, model in the scan tool, it can be a little bit confusing. So they do have a method, somewhat of a method to their madness. On the chassis codes, the first letter is going to be denoting what kind of vehicle it is. So W is for short wheelbase, V is for long wheelbase, R is for 2 seats, C is for coupes, S for station wagons, A for cabriolets, and X is for SUVs that are designed from an already existing platform. Now, the number that comes after that seems like there's not much rhyme or reason to it. I think it's just fairly sequential as to how it goes across. So a W220, for example, would be a model that you will find. And you'll see that on the scan tool too. I'll make sure I call it out when we go live on the tool and pull some screenshots. Also, the engine codes. So the engine codes have a little bit less of a rhyme or reason from what I could find. M means it's gas. It's a gas engine. I can tell you that. And then OM is diesel. But the numbers is, this is kind of like the base engine family. So like a 272 in this example is a 3.5 liter. The 272 in this example that's the base engine family. And then 977 would be the variant. Now on the engines themselves, they have a plate that would have these numbers in it, along with a bunch of other numbers that denote other things. It's more specific to that vehicle. But to order parts, sometimes you may need to know at least this base 6 digits, right? So 272, 977. Same thing with the transmissions. So 722 transmission and 960 would be the variant, right? So a lot of their main components are numbered in that way. So just so you're aware that you may need to know that information when you're working on it, especially if you're not familiar with working on Mercedes vehicles. That can be a little bit to get your head wrapped around, right? Because they do that differently than anybody. Now let's get to tips from a tech. So this brings us, that's actually a really good segue with that engine. So an M272 or M273 engine's timing chain. So Sean Shaw, one of our diagnostic reps up here in Connecticut, actually, he's a former Mercedes and BMW tech, and he gave me this little tip here. So on these, timing chains can stretch, timing guides can wear, tensioners will fail, what have you, any sort of weird timing problem where it'll set maybe one of the cams out of time when it stretches or something like that. In order to check it, you would normally have to disassemble a lot of the engine. But there is a trick, and actually I found a video from Mercedes that shows how to do it as well. So I took a couple screenshots out of that. But what you want to do is you want to remove the cam sensors, both cam sensors on each bank. So there's 4 cam sensors, so you can take them off each bank there. And then there are holes that will be left over when you pull them out, right? So there's one cam sensor there, there's one cam sensor there, and there's a couple holes. You can't see the bottom one there. You'll turn the engine clockwise to line up the mark on the crank. We want to keep the chain tension going the right direction, so we want to always go clockwise with that. You'll pull it up until this mark that's on the crank lines up. So they said it's 305. Next to the 305, there's a little mark. If it's an older engine, not sure how easily it's going to be to see it, but in this case, it looks like a pretty brand new engine. So not sure how much that'll wear off, if at all. Not sure, but just be aware that could be a possibility as well. And then you'll look through the holes that were left by the cam sensors. So in this case, there is a circular group of numbers with a circle around it. So this one is good. That's where it's supposed to be. And then they looked at the other one, and this one is out of time. Right? So this, say an intake cam is okay and the exhaust cam is not, then you'll know that maybe your timing chain is stretched, something like that. So there's marks that you can see in order to do that. And make it a lot easier than having to disassemble half the engine to inspect the timing chain. You can see, oh, well, it's all in time, so maybe it's something else type of thing. Right? So I thought that could save a ton of time, I could think, because it's a process to get everything apart. Really got to pull the engine in order to get the timing, all the timing stuff apart. So that right there, I think, is worth its weight in gold, just to be able to look and see and test that. Visually, nice and easy. Okay, some OEM specific functions when it comes related to the scan tool. So couple tests when it comes to the engine. Injection quantity adjustments, one big one. So if you replace a fuel injector, you have to put in a 5-digit code from that injector in order to compare it to the engine so it knows how much to flow. There's also numerous adaptations available. I know they're pretty notorious for having a lot of adaptations in coding and programming, things like that. So correction of the ignition, correction of fuel quantity, fuel pump activation, teaching of throttle stops, resetting of adaptation values, etc. And I'll kind of walk through one of these lists when we go into on the tool as well. Teaching of the transmission. So this is for when the control unit's replaced, or the electro-hydraulic controller unit was replaced, or the automatic transmission itself was replaced. Also, suspension height adjustment. There's various ways they go through and adjust suspension height. In this case, they call it a level calibration. If a level sensor has been replaced, if the aromatic control module has been replaced, vehicles have been incorrectly calibrated. It says it must be carried out on a chassis alignment system, does not need to be exactly level. And then use the button up and down to move the specific target level and save it with the inclinometer. After specified level has been reached, continue to enter the inclined angle. And there's a whole thing you have to go through. You can also do raise suspension struts. And on some vehicles that are equipped with the air suspension, you may have seen those videos before where there's, they call it rodeo mode, where the vehicle just kind of moves around like this, and just really what it's doing is it's testing the actuators up and down sequentially around the outside of the vehicle. It kind of looks like the car is dancing. So that's available too on the vehicles that need it and support it. Also, before we go live on the tool, I want to mention something that is fairly unique to Mercedes. Unique to Mercedes with the scan tool. So when leaving the module, the tool will prompt you to cycle the key. Turn the key off, wait a couple seconds, turn the key on. You need to do that. It seems like it's a pain every time you need to do that, but because of how they communicate, how the modules communicate, they need to be key cycled when you leave the module. Otherwise, you may risk damage to the vehicle. Not necessarily physical damage, but we have had people lock up cars, like electrically lock up cars. Like, I can't communicate with the car anymore, the car won't start, those types of things. So just be aware that read the instructions on the screen, back out properly. On the wireless tools as well, like a Varus and Zeus, make sure you do stop communication or change vehicle would be this button, and then that stops communication with the vehicle before you leave the vehicle. Because some people may just go in the module and they'll just, all right, I'm done, I'll just pull it out and then go on about their merry day. And that can screw up the car too if you're actually communicating with it at the same time. So you need to make sure you do that on the non-wireless tools like Apollos, Tritons, Soluses, those sorts of things. You just want to make sure you back all the way out to the main engine menu. So that'll force it to stop communicating. It'll also force you to turn the key and all that. So just make sure you're aware of that and make sure that that gets done so we don't cause any unforeseen, unnecessary issues with it. All right, let's go live on the tool and check out a few of these example vehicles. So the first one I have is the 2013 C-Class. So let's go into the scanner here quick. And you'll also notice down here, or actually right there on that screen too, but you'll notice down here on the bottom, it says 204.331, right? So that's that chassis variant. So this would be a 204 would be the number on that anyways. And let's go into engine quick. Also, since I'm in a simulator, there may be some variants that need to get done as well. Functional tests, and you'll see we got actuator tests, special functions, output controls, and adaptations. So special functions is going to be for a gasoline particulate filter if equipped. Also, we might find some things on these with the simulator that don't necessarily exist on the vehicle. You'd never see that hooked up to a real car though, if it didn't have it. Adaptations, for example, correction of program ignition, injector quantity adjustment, talked about that a little bit ago. So when replacing an injector, it's essential to save the QR code of the new injector in the engine control unit. So it is a 5-character number located on the body of the injector. And then there's an example. So I just go in there, edit it, and you can type in the new number when you need it, and then just hit OK. And then just hit OK there, and it'll code it. So there we go. And then also speaking of, adaptations, right? We have adaptations. So this will tell you, or reset your engine adaptations, right? It's going to tell you what you need to to do in order to do that. And then there's also a couple coding menus as well. Like I said, they have a lot of coding involved in certain parts and certain things. So in this case, coding is things like what kind of exhaust system does it have, EGR valves. There's different codes in here that don't have definitions necessarily. So you need to know what you're doing and changing some of these things, like your vehicle speed limiter, what transmission variant do we have, gas airflow sensor, those sorts of things. So 2 coding menus on there for two different things, 2 different menus, vacuum pumps, things of that nature. So if you need to go into those menus, they are available as well. All right, let's go into get some SureTrack information on this car. It's actually not the one I picked, but so go back to C250 actually. That's what I wanted. See, with the codes, the body codes, right? It doesn't always translate. Engine code as well. You see that there. Transmission code there as well. Go in here and we'll see 61,797 repairs. Most of them misfires. Then we have a cam sensor, coolant thermostat, fuel volume regulator control, spark plugs, coils. You know, a lot of this is your usual suspects, and a lot of the misfire stuff that's pretty standard. So and timing chain #1 on that as a choice for in there. Let me change engines quick. Go to 300. That'll do a 3.5 liter engine on that one. 36,000 repairs, a lot of misfires on that as well. We'll go to 350. So that's a 3.5 liter as well. So that should have the same, and it does. And then go with the AMG. Just look here real quick. So I think this one had only one engine. All right, never mind. C63 is the AMG. So that's going to have way fewer repairs. 5,600 repairs, though. Lean, thermostats, misfires, secondary air injection system on that one, too. Not a lot of occurrences on that, though. So let's look at now the E-Class. It's going to have a lot of similar stuff in there because they're going to share kind of engines and transmissions and stuff because they're the same model year even. This one does have a lot of variants though. So we pull up a variant. Adaptations, in this case, teaching of used fuel injectors, reset it. Adaptations, throttle valve stop, injector quantity adjustment. This particular module doesn't have coding as an option. So it depends on what variant you have. And then, of course, it goes back to the stopping communication as well. Switch the key off. It's going to wait. Switch the key on. And then it's going to bring you back to the main menu. Right? So you're not going to see those variants when you go in on the actual vehicle itself. All right. Check some SureTrack. The 3 liters of diesel. 3.5 liter, we'll use that. We'll do the 4MATIC, which is their all-wheel drive system. And we'll see once again, misfires on that 3.5 liter intake air system leak. Is one of the top codes as well. Valve stem, spark plugs, headlight bulbs. Not a lot of odd stuff there. I don't see a lot of odd stuff there. So by and large, comparing to some other European brands that we've went through, there's not a lot of weird. Doesn't seem like a lot of weird, wild stuff that you're going to run into those. It's just kind of a complex repair, we'll put it that way. And then we'll go to the Mercedes as well. Oh, not the Mercedes. Yeah, it's a Mercedes. They're all Mercedes. GLA class as well. This one's got a 2-liter engine in it, so it's going to be a little bit different. It looks like it's probably going to be about the same for adaptations and stuff, right? Yeah, so injector quantity adjustments and things. Output controls, oil pump valve, that could be important for that that top code there that we get. Okay. And then let's check our SureTrack. And this was a GLA, why did that not come up? There we go, GLA 250. Attic. This vehicle. So 15,000 repairs on that. And then we see this code right here and this code right there. Those are those PCV regulator valves. So this is like one of the most common codes on there. And they don't provide a lot of information on it either, but this one they did. This PCV one. Oh, I clicked on the wrong code. Hold on a second. This one right there. That's the one. There we go. PCV valve. They call it an oil separator. It doesn't. What it does, it separates the oil out of the PCV system, so it's not burning oil. It's just it wipes the oil out, and then it just burns the extra gases. So yeah, lots of different things that might need to be done on that on the PCV valve. So that is fairly common on that. A couple other. That's P0128. That's a thermostat code, right? Thermostat code as well. Thermostat heater. It's an electric thermostat on there as well. So yeah, there is Mercedes-Benz. Hopefully it picked up a couple little nuggets. I think that timing chain one was pretty powerful. That can save you a ton of time there. So that is Mercedes. And with that, that is our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We will be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time. So make sure you check it out on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, well, of course, you would be watching this on YouTube, but make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, ring the little notification bell so you know anytime we post new content. And it's youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnosticsUK. With that, time for questions. If you have any questions, just feel free. Once again, if you're watching this on a premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we will get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've given you today. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hopefully you can watch and see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week, have a good night, and take care.